cheers to us, the ones that have cheated death, the ones that were fortunate to not be the victims of bacteria or drunk drivers. If you're fortunate to live in a country like Nigeria, it is fortunate if you survive the entire fucking country. So I cheers to you. Well, except for those who are suicidal, of course. There can't be any chance for you because you obviously failed that objective. So, 2020 it's a new year. It represents a new hope. Try again, but this time put your back into it. I'm talking shotguns, 1,000 feet drop, for example. If you live in Lagos, you would struggle to find 1,000 feet to drop off from. So I'm just gonna suggest poison or jump in front of a moving bus. There's some ways that will help your objectives. That would put some efficacy in it. For those of us that plan on living forever, which I presume is the majority of the human race, I say you will be disappointed. But the good thing is you have been given another year. You haven't been given another year. Coincidence and probability is why you're here in 2020. Question is, what are you going to do with 2020? Same thing you did in 2019, I presume. Don't feel bad. It will be the same in some aspects and in some respects, and it will be different in other respects. We might have World War III this year. A meteorite could slam into Earth. One of my secret obsessions and one of my secret desires. But I would like for the human race to have a 72 hour head start. I just want to see how batshit crazy we can go as a species. We'll probably just have a purge night and purge the fuck out of each other. Yes, that will happen. That is a strong possibility. Yep. We will pull stunts like that. Let's see, what else? World peace could be attained. Powerful scientific discoveries are made every day. We could make one that would revolutionize the future, revolutionize our present. We could also become worse. That's one of the brilliance about tomorrow. Tomorrow is not guaranteed to anybody. Tomorrow is not an assurance, and I'm not speaking from a spiritual or a religious perspective. No, but no culture, no people, no group are guaranteed tomorrow. That is why we plan and we work today to guarantee and make sure tomorrow happens and happens as close to our plans as possible. So that should be what heralds a new year. The new year is fascinating. I like the new year. I like what the new year represents. I like the history behind the new year. For several reasons. Sure, we all come together and get shit-faced. A small percentage pretend that they take time to take stock of their lives, but that gin and tonic or beer in their hand always betrays that objective. No, of course not. I mean, everyone enjoys the new year and looks at the new year from their own different subjective experiences. The majority of people enjoy and herald the new year and welcome it, as it represents newness. It represents the unknown, and anytime there is the unknown, there is a possibility that the unknown could be better than the present. So that's why the new year is very interesting. I enjoy the new year because we celebrate something called the new year. I enjoy the fact that we have a system where we can celebrate certain normal, natural occurrences. This gives power. I mean, this is the brilliance of subjectivity and how we can impart our external view of the world, our internal view of the world into an external exercise or into an external event. The new year is one of those. What is a new year, basically? The new year just celebrates a year is, the sun revolving around. I mean, the earth revolving around the sun. It takes 365 days for that to happen. That's what makes it a year. January 1st is special to us before for several reasons, and it has been a culturally significant time for us due to ancient practices. The earliest recorded New Year's celebration, for example, is thought to be in Mesopotamia around 2000 BC. And that was done for some sort of pagan celebration. These celebrations actually occurred in March. I know it sounds weird, but the New Year celebration occurred in March. January 1st is the new acceptance of what we call the New Year. The New Year celebration is actually something called the vernal equinox, which happens in mid-March. And this was considered to be the start of the new year by the calendar at that time. And anytime this happened, a massive party and festivals, and it went on for, I believe it was an 11-day festival that would ensue the vernal equinox. And trust me, this is back in the days. This is some medieval party type shit, so you know how we do it. I'm talking about sex slaves and killing bulls and the shebang. So that is how it started, or that is the presumption of how it started. Ancient Mesopotamian people usually gathered together, they performed a lot of rituals, and some of the rituals were primarily to celebrate, the religious victory of their sky god called Marduk. The victory was over the sea goddess Tiamat. So this was significant at that time, and I believe they used this period to crown a new king or celebrate an existing king. But why the change? If you notice, I had mentioned earlier that we use different calendars. So the ancient Romans, for example, who continued on this tradition, obviously used the lunar cycle. This was the calendar being used that had the new year beginning in March. But thanks to further discoveries and growth in knowledge, we had ancient astronomers, astronomers, not ancient astronomers at that time, they were just called astronomers, but towards the more, ancient astrophysicists. And one of them, Sosigenes, was able to convince the emperor, Julius Caesar, at that time, to follow the solar year instead. He was able to achieve that objective. He was very successful. Hence, from around 45 BC, 46 BC, the new year began in January. And it was also done to partially honor a god named Janus, because the first of the year we Janus January, which is like spelled like Janus, on which the month January is named after. So this is also a part reason for why we celebrate it then. Even the features of heralding in a new year carried along very successfully. One of them, we carried along festivities, we carried along celebrations, and we also carried along resolutions. Resolutions is it's not a new phenomenon. We have been making resolutions for specifically, heralding the new year for as far back as 4,000 years, where, ancient Babylonians would make promises in order to earn favors from their gods and, start off the year right. So they would, they would make vows on things to do. They'll make vows on, on honoring debts they have owed, and so on and so forth. So resolutions have always been a part of this. Resolutions are interesting. Some people take resolutions very seriously. Every year that comes, they take it as a time for them to sharpen up, to take a long annual stock of their lives and make projections for what they want to achieve, which is perfectly okay. Personally, I don't make resolutions per se. I enjoy taking stock, and I make plans for what I want to achieve that year. What I want to achieve cognitively, what I want to learn. I want to be smarter in this respect. I want to be able to control certain parts of my predispositions. But these are things I do quite often, actually. So a new year, it's normal. It's just another day for me to continue on this, but I do not take a particular resolution per se for the year. Just be the best version of yourself. Not just the best version of yourself. I don't want to just say that. Don't just be the best version of yourself for you. Be the best version of yourself in general. Be secularly good. Don't just be good when it suits you, or don't just do not just focus on things that would aid you but could hurt others. So be very careful with your evolution, and be very careful with how you chase your dreams. So so with that respect, you make whatever resolutions you think. If you're the kind of person that can make resolutions and stick to it, brilliant, do it. Nobody's way is wrong. There is no wrong or right in this. You're able to develop as you see fit. Do I foresee any changes in 2020? Is something that I always enjoy trying to make predictions for how things could go. Obviously, based on how things are going and how things ended in 2019, and looking at the general progression of things. 2020 will obviously be interesting for several reasons. 2019 was also a very interesting year. Interesting from several angles and from several perspectives. It saw a rise in opinionated sides. We are reaching a very key, crucial part of our civilization. We're reaching a key, crucial part of our species and our intellectual evolution, our growth. And if you look at a graph, we would be at a point where you see a sharp rise or a sharp drop. That is where we are. That is why it feels like a lot of things are happening. We're bombarded with several ideas, several competing ideologies at the same time. There's new teeth, new arms, new weapons to exist in ideologies, to exist in stance, from feminism to respect of the LGBTQT to political correctness, to how we punish sinners. How do we look at people who have committed past sins, and how do we judge people versus allow people to evolve? So these are just certain things that I believe would continue very, very strongly in 2020. We will be more pivoted. We could be more divided in our stances as people take definitive stances on what they want to represent. But what I would, the only advice I would give to people would be try and stay in the middle. Try, if you're going to take a definitive stance, it has to be a definitive stance on something that is very empirical, not something that is just emotional or very just culturally driven or irrationally driven, or things that might be driven by your group, by your commune. Try and have, if you're going to have a definitive stance, it should be on things like, is gravity real? Is 1 + 1 2? And if you're going to break outside of empiricism, this is just my advice. It should be something that is generally agreed for the best well-being of everybody. Something that does not infringe on anybody's right to be themselves. So these are just things to aim for. I am looking forward to 2020, not because it is 2020, but because I have a lot of passion projects I want to develop. I am developing already. I'm always curious to look at my own self-evolution, my cognitive evolution, the evolution of my emotional IQ. So very fascinating to see what kind of madness and the new demons I'm going to add on, because I'm definitely getting some new demons. I wasn't able to get as much as I wanted in 2019 because I have plenty already, but I think 2020 I want to put myself further outside of my comfort zone and try out more uncomfortable things. But this is what I've already decided on and what I'm already working in, so the year will just flow in line with what I want for me. For the podcast, for Michael's Odyssey, I have several features and additions I'm wanting to bring in. One of them is videos. I want to do that. I've always wanted to do that. That's been the natural growth pattern that I've mapped out for this podcast. Obviously, the goal is for this to be the podcast for the continent, for the country, the largest listening numbers, the largest viewership, and so on and so forth. So I want video and audio, but I want to have my own studio, which is obviously what I want, and develop this so similar to something like the Rogan podcast or the Weinstein podcast. So this is what I want. So I will be trying it out later today or tomorrow. I'm going to record my podcast in a video format. The next episode of my podcast in a video format, and we'll see how it goes. Or I'll just try out perhaps just small mini clips for the next episode of this podcast. That should be good. Obviously more consistency, more content, and my key my need, actually a very strong need for me as part of this podcast is to interview people to get smarter, more evolved, much smarter, much more capable, much more knowledgeable people than I want them to come on board the podcast and challenge me, teach me, teach everyone who listens in. For the first, I want to get my hands on a Nigerian ethicist. Yeah, if I would, I would research on that and get an ethicist. Because a lot of topics I would touch on that would traverse the moral landscape and the ethical landscape. So that is something that's been on my mind. I would look into that. Yes, so getting people, getting certain types of experts is something that I want, something that I'm paying. It's obviously being a key feature of this show that I've said I want it on from day one. So 2020, I'm going to make sure it is a reality. That's a no-brainer. Topics. I enjoy the topics I did in 2019, monkey makers and moral dilemmas. I have several topics I want to touch on for this quarter before I go into just from different disciplines. Some of which are, let's see, one, having an emotional stake. That is going to be a podcast. Why have an emotional stake on things, and should we have emotional stakes? Are we allowed to have emotional stakes? And I'm very curious, and I want to look at different facets of emotional stakes and different applications of it. Another one I'm very, very fascinated with is suicide. I've been very fascinated with suicide for a very long time, and fascinated with it from several perspectives, from several angles. Assisted suicide, my God, that is one angle I definitely want to look into. Suicide from a cultural perspective, and also from a scientific perspective, because my take on this might shock you. I can't wait for that episode. I'll wait for it to drop. You guys gotta wait for it to drop. Suicide and assisted suicide. I do not just want to look at it from one. I am aware of it from the religious aspects, from the cultural aspect, but that usually all goes in line with one reoccurring theme. You do not own yourself. So which begs the question, who owns you? Another podcast I'm interested in is, a podcast looking at why we want others to do what we want. I will touch on that. That is going to be a very interesting one, I assure you. Fluidity of morality. This is one I'm always been very fascinated with morality, the subjectivity of morality. Can we structure and design moral codes? Yes, obviously we can, but how we structure and design these moral codes, and how empirical can we be with morality? How fluid can we be with morality? So this I find very fascinating. I can't wait to sink my teeth into it. Self-correction from so many angles. It's not a small thing. I can't wait to do a podcast on self-correction. Cultural from a cultural perspective, from an individual perspective, from a system perspective, self-correction. Culture, I'm going to be doing a lot of culture. I want to do one on some culture superior to others. I can't wait. I'm definitely doing a podcast on irrationalities. I can't wait, different types of irrationalities and its effect, and my own unique take on it. Gray areas. I love gray areas. I love gray areas. The idea behind gray areas, that as a discipline, something I definitely want to sink my teeth into. Another one, predisposition versus ideologies. Might sound similar to something, nature versus nurture, genes versus, the environment, and stuff like that. So yeah, these are some of the topics I will be touching on in the first quarter. Obviously the mind wanders, so when I have other ideas, I will jump on that. If I have other topics that come to me or I feel would be better suited, I would jump on those. So yeah, that's gonna be the announcement, and that's gonna be what I'm gonna focus on for 2020. My fellow mortals, arrivederci.